Okay, very good. So the next thing I want to show to you are some basic concepts of components. Every component, for instance, that looks like this, that has a black hexagon with some kind of symbol there, is a container. That means it just contains information. It does not really do or calculate any much too much. So you won't get like a point or anything out of this. You can just supply information there, like my construct point, for instance, and it will just contain that information, right? So construct a point. If I just put that, it's now the same kind of thing. It just does that, or just contains that point. Now, very important before I continue on. I currently have a different display that you might have. I currently have a display that shows me the icons. If you want to change that, you go to display here and you say draw icons, right? And if you say draw icons, it will now show you kind of the shortcut of that component. And if you now go to draw icons again, it will change into the icons of those components. So display, draw icons, and you can then see that it will just give you the kind of a shortcut of those. Okay, it's a point. You could also go to draw full names. Then these components will just get much more larger, yeah, and it will actually have all the information there for you. Now, in the beginning, this might be actually the right approach because you really get a clear definition of what inputs and outputs you get and what's the current name of the component. I have built up my course, though, using the draw icons method, right? And not draw full method. So I'm using always the shortcuts because that just makes your whole script that much nicer and neater. But if you want to, you could also just for now say draw full names, but keep the icons, okay? So you always know what kind of component I'm using, although you will have different inputs and outputs just by the length because actually the name is written here, okay? So let's just keep it for now here and continue on. Now, the next thing I want to show to you is the kind of display of your components. So keep in mind that these are always just containers, right? And those containers contain information, as we said. Now, there are different ways that actually a component will appear. Currently, this is turning orange, and this is just fine. This is just a light gray, which means this component is running and has no problems at all. This is due to that a lot of components will actually come with default values. That means that as a default, they will contain a value that makes a script or the component run already. Like the construct point will come with XY coordinates, XYZ coordinates with 0. So that means this thing will always run. You do not need to do anything to make it run initially. You can change it obviously, but you would need to do something. Then there are components which are kind of orange. That means that something is missing or something might be slightly wrong, right? And I can just show it to you. Maybe I'll leave it there by bringing in back my circle. So I go to curve, go to primitive and go to my circle here. And if I bring this guy in, you can see that this one also works because as a default, it will have a basic plane, which is my world XY, and it will have a radius set to 1, okay? So let me look at something that might not work from the get-go. And maybe I want to take a circle, but taking a circle as C and R, okay? So if I take a circle C and R, what it needs is a center, a normal direction, so the normal to its plane of the circle, and a radius. So just one more input than the normal circle. But something interesting is happening that it's not showing me any information, right? And if you do not see a balloon here, which might appear, you would want to go to display and want to go to canvas widgets and say message balloon, please trigger it on, okay? This is very important because this is actually a way for you to understand what is currently going wrong with your component. So again, display, go to canvas widgets and then just press on message balloon. And since you're here, what I would want to implement is that you just press on this profiler also, because that will just help you later on a bit more understanding what of your components take the longest to compute. But again, that's something that we will talk about later. Now, if I have the balloon open now, what this will now tell me, if I go to this balloon and click on it, you can actually see that it's telling you something failed to collect data. Therefore, I cannot give you any solution. And if you go to the output, it will tell you it's an empty circle parameter. I cannot give you anything out because I just have something missing. And it's a very useful thing to just go here and just see what is actually missing, because maybe you do not need to supply all of the informations here, because you can see again the normal and the radius actually have already a default value. And if I click on this, it's telling me I just need to supply the center. If I supply the center like so, this thing will run now. Okay, so you can see that this is running, the balloon is gone, and I can actually work with this now. And the profiler here will just show you in your whole script that we will do which component will take the longest to compute. This is just something you can take now and just keep. And if you just double click it, you can change it into how long it's computing or how much of percentage overall this is taking for the whole script. So if you have a large script, you can see a component maybe that's taking 90% of your computation time. You might want to change something there or want to do something so it just runs faster. You can also see sometimes here, if your script runs for minutes to compute, which might happen, and sometimes you can see which of those components is causing that problem just by double clicking here. Okay, that's a profiler, and that's a message balloon. Okay, so we've just learned how we can see the first two kind of colorings in Grasshopper. Now there's one more, which is actually red. And to show red, I want you to go to, this time not curves, but maybe surface, and take a primitive there. Can be anything. Let's just take the sphere, okay? And if I hook up the sphere now to my center, you can see that something will be red. So this is the third way that your component can look in a basic sense when it's running. And if you go to the balloon, it's saying data conversion failed from surface to point. So it's a conflict right now in the type of information that you've supplied to the circle. It is actually looking at it's looking at a plane or a point, but you can also, sometimes it also works with curves. So for instance, if I go to curve and go to primitive again, I could take an arc, right? So if I just want to show you the arc, I could just, this is the arc currently, and I just did it by clicking on this button here, which only will draw the preview geometry that I've currently selected. So this is selected, that's why it's green. That's actually the fourth way a component looks, yeah? And if I press on this, only this thing will show. If I deselect that, everything is shown. So if I put my arc into the center, it can actually convert the arc center and use it as information for my circle. Also something very useful to know. But if I supply a totally different format of information, so a surface, in this case even a solid kind of, this will say I cannot convert a surface to a point, and that therefore this component is not running, and red is indicating always a critical error. So you really need to do something, because this will mean that your script in 90% of the cases will not continue on working. So the output will give you nothing. Okay? So these are kind of the four basic types of how your components look in their normal way. So this one means everything is fine, and if you select it, it's always green. The orange one means something is missing, something might be slightly off, and red means critical error, something is totally off. Okay, so now that we have looked at that, I want to take the time for showing you the different kind of display modes also of my components, right? So that means that this is usually the normal way that I actually see my information. I'll take this one, for instance, because this is the most prominent right here, okay? So the sphere currently is the one that is showing me, and every time it's light gray, you can see the information in Grasshopper. Now, if you click on this with your mouse roller, you can see that you have some information, or basically a pop-up menu here. And if you hit this blindfolded guide, disable preview, this will turn into a darker gray, which means this component is still running, but the visual output is not available currently. You do not see the visual output in your Rhino canvas, but it's still there. You just have hidden it, right? And if you click with your mouse roller again, you can just click on this normal enable preview, and it will be there again. So again, select it, mouse roller, and then say preview off. this is a way, this is the first instance of a preview of your component. Okay, so this just means that you cannot see it. It has nothing to do with those three different situations of the component itself. It's just now literally a visibility factor. Now, another thing that is not only visibility, but it's actually also saying something about the computation of the running of the script is, again, if you press the mouse roller and you hit now not those two, but actually going to the enable and disable. If you disable a component, this means you have locked this component. It will not run. And you can do it with all of your components, and those will not run. They will not take really an input, and they will not give you any output. They are just not running right now, okay? And this is useful. This is very useful if you have a large script and you do not need a certain portion of your script to run in order for the other one to, to adjust or modify. You can just select that portion, just disable it, and your whole script will be much faster because it does not need to always recompute also that portion. And if you want to bring it back, select everything, mouse roller, and just hit this enable button. So you have two different ways of displaying a component. Actually, you have three. This one would be the normal one, the light gray. If it works, then you actually see it. And so again, with the sphere, this is the one that I'm just going to make a copy for now. I'm just going to disable those just to have those different options here. So this is the normal one. Then I'm going to make a copy and paste, and another copy. And the other condition would be to disable the preview, so you do not see the preview. And the other condition would be to disable this component, and this is how they will then look in a color scheme. So light gray, dark gray, and very, very dark faded gray. That's how your components might look. This means the preview is off, this means you see everything, and this means nothing is running. This component is dead currently. Yeah, it's locked. Okay, super. So the last thing I want to show you is going to be the wires, and then we are basically set for the basics and actually start with our real course. So good job, see you in the last one, and then let's get going. Hi, I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please feel free to leave a comment, a like, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel. Also note that this video is part of a 13-hour-long online tutorial series called Algorithmic Skyscraper Design. You can find it on my e-learning platform, Design Upgrade. That is courses.design-upgrade.com. To get access to all online courses, just sign up and secure yourself an all-access membership. Choose one of the many courses available with one new added course each month. In the Algorithmic Skyscraper Design, I will take you from zero to hero for practice-based visual scripting inside Rhino. Learn also to create advanced environmental simulations and design user interfaces with Grasshopper. So see you there, and let us make some design upgrades.